Alright guys, welcome to Reflections. Alright, so we've already kind of talked about reflections, just not using the term reflections. When we talked about in the Law of Attraction video, or in the first parts of the program, we mentioned how there are echoes that are based upon your beliefs, or if you watch the Law of Attraction video, it talks a bit about the echo of the music box. This is basically the same thing. Everything around you would be a reflection of you. It's just looking at it in a different way. So basically, if you're looking around your world or your reality and everything you're seeing right now, it's kind of like it's a mirror, okay? And the idea is when you are living your life, you're basically looking into a mirror all of the time. And what I mean by this is everything you're seeing is like the echo, or everything you're seeing is a reflection of your inner state of being, what you're feeling most of the time, or what you're vibrating most of the time. Because everything around you is manifested based upon your point of attraction or what you are attracting at that time, your state of being, your inner feeling, your vibrational frequency. And so that's the idea of reflection. So when you hear any spiritual teachers or anybody else talking about, oh yeah, it's a perfect reflection for me, or anything like that, or like look at your reflections and grow from them, stuff like that, this is what they're talking about. They're talking about the echoes. They're talking about everything that you've currently manifested in your life based upon your current state of being. Now, the interesting thing is sometimes when you look in the mirror, you can actually see like a polar extremity. And as you can see in this picture here, this guy is like, what in the heck am I seeing? And the reason for this is basically sometimes we create echoes or we create reflections in the mirror that completely reflect the complete opposite of what we are seeing in ourselves. And this is perfectly normal. It's perfectly fine. This is basically because everything has an opposite to it. So if you have one, the opposite has to be completely true. And what I mean by this is like, so if you have the color black, you also have to have the color white. Or if you have mean, you also have to have nice. And the reason for this is so you can bring balance to the world. If you don't have one, the other cannot be identified. The actual identity of one is dependent on the other. And so if you didn't have, like I said, if you didn't have sad, you wouldn't have happy because you wouldn't know how to differentiate one between the other, as they both have to be in existence for one to actually exist. And this is just to keep the balance in the world. When you see a polar extremity, they're here to bring you back into balance for your life. They're here to bring you back into a more joyful state of being. And so sometimes we'll take extremes on one end, or we'll take extremes the other, and we'll bring in some reflections into our lives that just bother the living heck out of us. And it's mostly there just to help us grow. It's there to see, hey, come back into balance a little bit with this certain area of your life. So we can, like I said, so we can enjoy our life a little bit more instead of just staying to one extreme versus the other extreme. And so what this can do is this can help you see both sides of stories instead of just taking one side. This can help you come back to unconditional love, basically. That is the idea of seeing the extremities, to help you have an influence to pull you into unconditional love. And that's what unconditional love is complete acceptance of both sides of the coin, or complete acceptance of things that are positive and things that we would consider negative. And so that is why you may see a polar extremity sometimes. It's there to help you say, hey, you're either completely this, or, what you see in the reflection, you're either going to be reflected back to you the exact, what you see in yourself already, or what you are having trouble seeing in yourself. And that is the polar extremity. And that's just there to help you find more balance into your life, to help you bring more unconditional love within your life. And so it can be interesting because sometimes we can create these inharmonious relationships, or we can start feeling like the relationships in our lives are inharmonious. And mostly it's just because we have a judgment towards an aspect of the relationship or an aspect of the person, or something that person is doing or bringing to your relationship. We judge it as bad. And when we judge it as bad, we only see the things that aren't working. We only see inharmony. We don't see the harmony in the relationship. We don't see how it can work. We don't see the good. And so that's what I'm saying, is the idea is to bring balance and to get you back into unconditional love. And when you can start seeing all of this from that point of view, and you can start looking at everybody that is in your reflection, or that's everyone that are being reflections to you, and things that are being reflections to you, as good things, and you can start seeing them as, in the eyes of unconditional love. Then you can actually start creating more harmonious relationships, as you're no longer seeing them as a bad thing. And then when you start no longer seeing them as a bad thing, you no longer see the polar extremity as a thing that is affecting you in a negative manner. Though I do want to point out, while it may seem that someone is reflecting to you a polar extremity, which means they're the complete opposite of you, it still is a complete reflection and a complete echo of what you are emanating, because by you actually being on an extreme on a certain topic or a certain subject, and that right there actually makes you a match to other people being on the extreme to certain topics and subjects. So that is where it's a complete actual reflection of what you are vibrating at that time, even though it may seem as if, the reflection is the complete opposite of you. While it is there to also bring you into balance and to bring you into more practicing of unconditional love, it is also still a reflection of what you are giving off, what you are putting off, which is extreme actions or taking extreme sides on certain subjects and topics. And so it gets really interesting, the idea of extremities. And so while we're on the topic of people and people serving as reflections to you in your life of your inner state of being, I do want to go in a little further and show you some of the importance of loving yourself actually while you're seeing these reflections, and how loving yourself can actually completely change your reflections, or just changing your inner state of being, which is through unconditional love and unconditionally loving yourself for what you are. Some of the cool things that people do for us when it comes to being a reflection for us is they're really there to help you, show you where you still need to grow. And so one of the things you can do here is you can actually sit down and reflect on your own actions. You ever heard of that phrase, sit down and reflect on your own actions? Well, it's basically because every action you take has a possibility to trigger pain in others. All right, like I said earlier, they reflect to you where you need to grow, and you also reflect to them where they need to grow or where they're still weak. And so they do the same thing for you. It's kind of that right there is a harmonious relationship, is by being there to serve each other and to show each other where they still need to grow. But for this case here, this phrase is basically telling you to do their job and to look at your own actions to find where you need to grow. This is why this phrase is used. It's basically to say, hey, since you're not really listening to the reflections outside of you or seeing that, maybe it's a good idea to look inside and do it yourself. And a really good quote I like by Benjamin Franklin is, "Love your enemies, for they tell you your faults." And so I thought that was really cool, and I wanted to share that with you guys. Another good example of actually where we help each other grow by being reflections to each other is what I like to call poking bruises. Basically, everyone has bruises, but they're really inside of us, like our inner spiritual bruises or our inner emotional bruises, and they're really hidden well from sight. So much so that they're even sometimes hidden from the one who is bruised. Most of the time, we do hide them for ourselves. We hide them from ourselves because we don't want to deal with that pain, which is perfectly understandable. And so it actually becomes one of the very roles of others to help us find these bruises, so we may heal them and expand further. And that's all part of the game. We all like to grow, and we like to grow while we're interacting with other people. It's actually one of the best ways that we can do it, and we find that to be a very joyful thing, which is why we've created that as a collective. And another quote that I thought was really cool this is by Winston Churchill, and when there is no enemy within, the enemies outside cannot hurt you. And I thought that was really powerful because it really reflects the idea that when you love yourself and you are, choosing the state of being that you want to be in, and you're not an enemy of yourself, and you're, like I say, completely loving yourself, nothing outside can reflect to you anything that would hurt you, as the only thing they could reflect to you would be that love. And so one of the other things I'd like to talk about is maybe digging deeper on this topic. If you can really dig deep enough and listen to the reflection that you're seeing outside of you, whether it's a person or a thing or, an event, something that happened, and really listen to it, you will see and you will find that you are capable of feeling the same way as that reflection was, or giving off the same state of being that reflection gave to you, or that echo, which basically means you're capable of doing any and all things that the reflection is doing. And the reason for this is because all the feelings that is being expressed by that reflection stem from the same root feeling, which is love or fear. And we all act from either love or from fear. And that's what brings us our reality, or we reflected love or we reflected fear. And so when you remember all of our actions are influenced from those feelings that we hold within, then you can realize that we are all actually one. You can start really seeing that while we may be unique and different, we all are still acting from the same root feelings. And we're all only really looking for joy. We're all from the same essence, as you can see. Like I said, we're all source. We're all the universe, energy, God, divinity. We're all of that. And if you can recognize this, that we all only act out of love or fear, and if you can accept this of yourself, this can greatly help you let go of judging other people for their thoughts and feelings and actions as bad, as you will understand that we all only act from love or fear, and that we're all only trying to bring us, and we're all seeking joy. We're all trying to bring us into a state of joy with every action we take. And sometimes the actions may seem like negative. They may seem painful and may seem like they're actually hurting us more than they are actually helping us. But sometimes those actions are required to get us to the next step so we can finally get to that end goal of joy. And so this is just a little bit more on the idea of echoes and, loving yourself and reflections. And so I hope this gives you a good, a little more deeper understanding of how everybody in your reality, the people especially, I want to focus on the people for this video, serve as reflections to us. They help us find where we need to grow, our inner bruises. And it's all a very beautiful thing, as it brings us back to unconditional love. And when you can unconditionally love yourself, not only will the reflections start to change, the people start to change, you will actually really start to see everything change. And everything will start reflecting you, your own self-love, your own unconditional love. And so that is the beauty of changing your state of being to something that brings you joy, or changing your state of being and holding it in a place of unconditional love, as that'll be the only echo or the only thing that can be reflected to you in your reality.